Information is now open to the public about who is donating big money to political campaigns, but there are questions about what's actually being found on the Secretary of State's See the Money website. Mary Jo Pitzl of the Arizona Republic broke the story. She joins us now. Good to have you here. Thanks for joining us. Before we get started, the Secretary of State's See the Money website, what is that?
That is a website where campaign finance information is posted. You can go there and you can look up the lawmaker or the candidate who's running for legislature and find out, look at their reports, find out who they're getting money from. You can do that for political action committees. And now, because of voter approval of Proposition 211 2 years ago, you can now find out what is coming from some of these independent expenditure committees.
And are there certain levels? When you're above a certain level, you have to report this, correct?
Correct. Yeah, it gets a little technical, but
yes.
If an individual donor gives $5,000 or more to an independent expenditure committee that's already spent $50,000, then you must name the principal donors that are over $5,000. The idea is to let the public know who's funding these campaigns, which up until now have been secret. Candidates have to disclose who's given them money, PACs have to do that, but if you see an ad paid for by Arizonans for better toothpaste, you have no idea who is the major money behind that. The law changes that.
Okay, so shining a light on these dark money groups, if you will, before we get to what is seen and what is not seen right now on the website, who enforces all this stuff that you just talked about?
The website's at the Secretary of State's office. The enforcement is done by the Citizens Clean Elections Committee. And they've had their own issues because they haven't been able to see the reports, to see the money, to know if there's anything that needs to be examined.
Okay, why are the reports so hard to find? What's going on here?
Well, Secretary of State Adrian Fontes says it chalks it up to turnover in his IT staff, to lack of funding. Every Secretary of State complains about lack of funding, with some merit, and also just dealing with old technology. He calls it legacy technology. They just can't seem to make it work. We found out after asking, well, where are these reports? Because we know we know these things are happening. We know these campaign messages are out there. Why are we not seeing them? They're like, well, we have the reports, but we just can't get them on the website. They have fixed that within a couple of days of getting a little attention drawn to that.
Yeah, the attention from your story. What percentage do you know, what percentage of the folks that should be on that website are on that website?
That's a really good question. And I just inquired this afternoon because I've heard that there's another campaign that's running around down in southern Arizona. They've clearly spent more than $50,000. We've seen nothing from them. So is that because they didn't bother to file the report, which would be something the Clean Elections Commission might want to look at, like you're supposed to be reporting? Or is the report in, but just the SOS is unable to get it to appear on its website? They do have reports from 8 different committees that are online now.
If the Secretary of State's office has the information, but they can't transfer it over, if I want to know this group behind the toothpaste that you just mentioned, I want to know this. It's not on the website. Will they be able to tell you without it being on the website?
Well, you might have to do a public records request.
Yeah.
And those things take time. And the value of doing this for the reports that did show up by late last week, it proves the point about why Proposition 211 was passed. For example, there's a group called Arizona Taxpayers for a Secure Border. It appears that they're going to be the people that are going to promote the ballot referral that lawmakers made that would make crossing the border a crime that Arizona could prosecute. So you look at the report and you see the donors. Well, they're like, some of their bigger donors are from Colorado and from Arkansas. So it's sort of, and these are the Arizona taxpayers for a secure border. At least it helps you to understand where the money is coming from. Then you can do some research if you want and figure out why some millionaire, billionaire up in Colorado would be interested in doing this, or why some guy down in Arkansas.
Yeah. And I would imagine the more you look into these things, the more you're going to find these big money donors from out of state. They're often involved in this kind of thing, are they not?
Well, they have. We believe they have.
But you don't really, that's right, you don't really know.
And there's also a belief that because of Proposition 211, a lot of these groups maybe they just won't play. They don't want their names out there. You know, there were lawsuits trying to block this, saying, look, this violates, you know, my free speech rights as a donor. So I think we might see fewer of these things happening because people just aren't going to put money into those campaigns.
Or could we see a more muddling of the pipeline?
Well, the pipeline's sort of muddled right now.
Yeah, but I mean even more so.
How so?
Well, just, I mean, if you're trying to find out who's here, then you got to go back here, then you got to go back. I mean, can you go back far enough to where, can people hide if they go back far enough still?
No, but if in one of these committees, it goes back to trade unions, and you don't know who those donors are. I mean, the unions are supported by the union dues, whether there's somebody in there who gave $10,000 in addition to their dues, that is not required under the law.
Yeah. So last question, what do we take from all this? From what you found out and from what you're hearing from the Secretary of State's office, and it sounds like they're trying to get their act in order, what do we take from this?
They need to get the technology fixed. And, you know, the money argument, the Clean Elections Commission is saying, we gave you $72,000 to stand up this, you know, to stand up this part of the website. If you need more money, come ask. You know, they have it. They could give that to them. Things don't always happen quickly, and I just heard this afternoon from the Secretary of State's office that they are working on basically a new and improved version of this website, but it probably won't be available until August, which is after the primary, but it would catch a lot of the, if it happens, it would capture a lot of the activity before the November election.
Certainly the ballot measures and things like that. Yeah. Mary Jo Pitzel, Arizona Republic, great job. Thanks for sharing. We appreciate it.
Sure.